Hey everyone, I want to go through my overall thought process whenever I approach blocking out a modular kit or a building. I have this image right here that I kind of straightened out a little bit. I'm going to use this to demo with. Over here in Maya, I'm going to go ahead and start off by going to create free image plane. And I'm going to open up the attribute editor and load up this image into the image plane. So what I want to do first is I want to figure out the scale of this image and try and get it as accurate as possible. Now I do already have the grid set to feet. Come down to the properties, go to settings, and I have my measurement set to foot already. I'm going to go ahead and start scaling this up a little bit. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move the pivot of this image plane just to kind of make it a little bit easier to scale. I think I'll just go with maybe like a corner. This part definitely isn't necessary, but I just think it's a little bit easier. Based on this image, for now, I'm going to kind of focus on this edge right here instead of coming down here. Only because I think I'm going to add that as an extra foot after the fact. I'm going to put the pivot about there. I'm kind of looking at the wall right here. I think I have it accurate. And so now this is currently sitting at origin. If I take a look right here, you notice that corner is origin. I can now start scaling this up. And I'm kind of looking at these grid numbers. Now, what I can do is if I create a default plane, let's go ahead and rotate it to match the perspective of the image plane like so. And I'm going to do the same thing like I did just a moment ago, where I'm going to move the pivot to the corner. This way I can just keep that at the origin, just like the image plane. Now, for now, I don't need any of these extra subdivisions. I'm just going to get rid of those for now. And from here, now I actually have some numbers I can look with when I'm scaling. I'm going to come back to this front. Now, since this is a 3-story building, I'm just going to take a guess and say that this is 30 feet tall. So I set the scale to 30. Now I can actually scale up the image plane somewhere to kind of match. And I can just start scaling this direction and kind of figure out a good width as well. I'm looking at these numbers. It's landing at 39. I'm just going to call it 40. That means this is going to be a 30-foot tall building by 40 feet wide, which I think sounds pretty good. Just scale up this image plane a little bit, kind of match that. I think I'll just change these numbers to exactly 105. If I grab this plane and come back here to subdivisions, since I said it's a 3-story building, I can just insert 3 right there. And this is an indicator of 10 feet at this point. So 10 foot tall for the first story, another 10 feet tall for the second, another 10 feet tall for the third, which I think looks pretty good. Now to start blocking out the rest of these assets, I'm going to start off with these windows just because I feel like that's going to be a bit simpler. I'm just going to start increasing the subdivisions just like how I did for the height. I change it to 2. You can think of that as being 2 windows wide. Now I set it to 3 for 3 windows, 4 windows, and I'm setting it to now 5, which 5 happens to line up with these windows pretty well. Notice how I have a window in each one of these squares, and I have this blank brick wall that actually goes pretty well with this image plane. So from here, I'm just going to start doing a little bit of modeling. I'm going to go ahead and separate this one plane from the rest of it since I am building a modular kit. I'm just going to grab this face, do an extract faces. Here is that separate geo, and I'm just going to start inserting some edge loops. I think I'll go with the top. Now, right now, I'm trying to click on this geometry and it's actually selecting the image plane. What I'm going to do is grab this image plane and add it to a display layer. And if I hit this third button twice, it'll change it to a reference and it'll no longer let me select that image plane. I can also just push the image plane back just a little bit. And so now when I come over here, now I'm only selecting my geometry. I'm going to go back here to insert an edge loop and I'm just going to deal with the top and bottom and the side, something like that. Now, for the sake of making these numbers a bit easier to deal with, for now, I'm just going to move this edge over using grid snapping. At the moment, this is now 4 feet wide, and I might do the same, make that complete whole numbers, kind of like so. And from here, I'm just going to go ahead and move my pivot to the corner one more time, and I'm just going to kind of test how this looks. At the moment, every single one of these rectangles are the exact same scale, so I can just delete all of that and just come back here and duplicate this all over again. I'm just going to hit Shift D a few times. And again, I'm just using this to try and figure out if this scale is going to work. And I'm snapping with the grid right now, so everything snaps pretty well. And I always jump back between the front and the perspective, just kind of get an idea. Now to further illustrate this window, I can go ahead and just grab this face and I can just translate it inwards. I'll turn off grid snapping a little bit. And I can just do what I just did a moment ago. Since it's pretty quick to duplicate all these, I'll just delete them all one more time. It's not that big of a deal. And duplicate all of these over. Since it's all whole numbers with the grid, I don't have to worry. There we go. For this side, since this is just a brick wall, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of this detail. Get rid of all of these, that face. As it stands, I don't actually need any of these extra edge loops. Just going to make it a flat lane like I had before. Kind of like so. And so now if I duplicate this straight down, now I have this. I'm going to work on blocking out the door a little bit and these additional windows. Right? So I'm actually going to go ahead and just delete all of these 4 modular pieces and just stick with a flat plane. I think that'll just be easier to kind of block with. So I'll just duplicate that plane over and just do what I did before. Where I'm going to draw some edge loops in here, just do the tops and the sides, and I think I'll even snap them, at least for now, just because I notice it gets pretty close to that grid line. So I want to go ahead and keep this as simple as possible. I think that looks pretty good. And I'll go ahead and even extrude this in just a little bit. And just to test this out, I'll just delete all those pieces, duplicate this. This whole process is all about trial and error and seeing kind of what works. Now I am going to make some concessions again when it comes to the overall scale of some of these pieces. And I also just realized these windows, these are actually smaller compared to these ones. If I go ahead and grab all of these geometry and hit F9, I'm going to grab all of these vertices and translate them up a little bit. That way, if I come over here in the perspective, you'll notice these windows are shorter than these ones in the middle. And at this point, I am just kind of using the image and just kind of line it up right about there. Back down here, I do see that I have actually 2 windows that are the same right here and another one that's actually different. Now I can choose to either use the same exact one, in which case it will be this 3 window wide one, or I can make an additional module that will have a 4 window wide one. If I want to do that, I can just go ahead, grab this right here, and I can choose to kind of mimic this image and translate it kind of like so. Now if I take a look at this, what I have at the moment now is window 1, window 2, I'll call this window 3, and window 4. If I look at this image plane, these are the ones that are repeating. So notice how this window's the same exact one across all of these. This window's the same across all of these. This one happens to be completely unique. These 2 repeat. And then I actually have a door over here. Grab these vertices and just kind of match the image plane. And I'm just snapping to some verts. That's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to come back to this window right here and I'm going to try and add these little sill and geometry detail. Just grab a cube. Just going to snap to one of these corners and I'm just snapping it to this geometry for now before I actually look at the image. Coming back to this image, looks like I actually need to snap to the top of it, snap it right there, and then just kind of translate that upwards. And I think I'll push this in a little bit. I can do the same on the top where I'll come up here and kind of snap it in there, translate this bit up. And at the moment, this image happens to be slightly off. So it's kind of eyeballing it a little bit, looking at how much overlap it kind of has, kind of like that. Now, just like before, I can just delete those windows again. And for now, I'm going to grab these pieces of geometry and I'm going to group this. Since this is the first one I'm grouping, I'm just going to call this one window 01 underscore group. I'm going to make sure I put my pivot back at this corner, just like I've been doing. Just duplicate these just like before. Duplicate all 3. There we go. I think I'll do the same thing where I'm going to duplicate this one. However, this one is now going to be called window 2 because I know this one should be shorter. Grab these vertices and I want to make sure this is the edge loop that lines up with the rest of those. So if I take a look right here, you'll notice how I've snapped that vert and I'll just delete those one more time and just duplicate this one more time. I'm keeping the geometry as simple as possible because I'm constantly deleting and reduplicating stuff over just to kind of get a feel for how this will all work. Now, what's great about these modular kits is, let's say I wanted to change something like this window, for instance. If I don't have a window here anymore, I can just choose to put a brick wall. I can choose to get rid of this one and then duplicate another brick wall. And notice how everything's just snapping together. It's all because these individual kits happen to be the same exact size. Now, every building's going to be slightly different, which is why you want to work to make it as simple as possible. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this final detail up here really quick, and I'll just go ahead and start with a cube, translate this up here, going to snap this corner, and since I'm matching the width of this little modular piece, I'm going to stop it right there. I can get rid of this extra geometry that I don't currently need and kind of translate this up, get right about there. And for now, I'm going to keep this pretty low poly. I'm just going to do that for now, just kind of block it out. And if I translate this over, notice how it's just matching with the exact size of these modules. I can go ahead and bring those two windows back in. And if I want to take a look at the individual modules I have this short window. There's this long window. I'll put right there. I have this other window, which I've yet to name. I'm going to go ahead and call this window 03. And this last one, I'm going to duplicate it down here and call it window 04. And I have a brick wall. I'll just go ahead and call brick wall like so. And I have this door that I will call door. So based on the side of this building, I do currently have these 6 modules. Each one is the same exact size, so I'm going to be able to change out whatever I want, and everything's going to snap together really quick and easy.